Hi everyone.
Howdy.
My name is Barrett Morrison.
I'm Matt Hyams.
And I'm Brandon Hamilton.
And we are the Red Dress Ball.
I'm from BC originally, and a lot of my HIV outreach started there. I worked for Youth HIV Society and Health Initiative for Men and a few other organizations there. I moved to Toronto about 7 years ago and have been continuing my journey in HIV outreach. Since then, I met this guy on the bike rally, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which led us to the Red Dress Ball, and I think these guys are going to highlight that later.
Yeah,
So.
we'll talk about that in a bit. And I've been working with the Friends for Life Bike Rally and the Toronto People with AIDS Foundation for about 5 years now. And Matt has some other additional.
Fabulous. And I'm another bike rally goer, but beyond that, I've been an advocate for PrEP for the last 5 years, and I'm also a national ambassador for the Canadian Foundation for AIDS Research.
And I believe we have a little video to show you of our event, the Red Dress Ball.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
Yeah, let's roll. So that's a little taste of what our event involves.
Did anybody spot us? Did you see us in there?
We might have looked a little different. So to give you guys a little history about how it started, the charity that we've been sponsoring mostly is the Toronto People with AIDS Foundation, or PWA. And PWA has an event called the Friends for Life Bike Rally, which is their biggest charity event, or their biggest fundraiser. Now, I started with that, so I rode the bike rally, which is where we cycle from Toronto to Montreal over the course of 6 days. And on the bike rally, there is one day in the middle, which is called Dress in Red Day. But we, of course, changed it to Red Dress Day. So that's where we ride into Kingston, Ontario, and we basically all dress in red, go all out, boas and streamers and big dresses.
It's quite the sight to see.
You have to be really careful not to let that dress hang into your spokes. You gotta hike it up.
But I was inspired by that day, and I thought, well, why not have a night where we can all wear what we can't wear on the bike? Because trust me, gowns don't work on a bike. And so that's where the idea for the Red Dress Ball started. I looked into hosting the event before I met this guy and this guy, but I didn't have the resources. So when we met, I talked about doing this event, and then we approached Matt with it, and Matt said, let's do this.
And the Red Dress Ball is a little bit of a forgotten thing that used to be done in the 80s and the 90s already, right? So it's just a kind of a rebirth or recreation of events that were HIV charities back in the day too.
When the initial AIDS crisis had begun and they needed a lot of fundraising for research and whatnot. A little bit of history about PWA before I pass it on. PWA is a service-based charity, so it's not a research charity. So what that means is that PWA supports people living with HIV and AIDS. So they do everything from, they have what they call their essentials market, which is a food bank, all the way through to just helping people fill out government paperwork. They do therapy as well as all kinds of support things from transit passes to hospice work as well. They work with all the other AIDS charities within the city of Toronto as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that this started off 3 years ago. We've just recently had our third edition, and it really, it started from a really community-oriented place. I think we all recognized that there was a gap here in Toronto for really what essentially is a fun night out, a place that you can take your friends that was really accessible as well too. Toronto's obviously a bit of a city of galas, and we kind of wanted to make something that was for everybody, and like Barrett said, really get a chance to show off those red outfits that everybody works really hard on, but nobody can take on the bike.
Exactly.
And I think, from the start, our key message was that it was all about community. So whether you were volunteer, whether you were a sponsor, whether you were contributing something for the event, really, like, we came from the perspective that, we're donating our time, we want to make a difference, and we really set that expectation with people that contributed to us as well too, that, it was about getting involved as a community rather than just necessarily, putting your name on something or, kind of expecting something more out of it from like a personal perspective as well too. So I think that, that was, it was really important because that to us, for our first year meant that we had auction prizes. We started silent auctions, and we really kind of grew it from there. Each year we had new people come on board to help us out, and a lot of people obviously believe in us. And I think this year we were on track to sell out a 600-person event and really kind of make a difference. But
and we've always, like, that's been part of our mandate. We kept the pricing at a community level so that it's accessible to everyone. We are volunteer based, so we volunteer our time. Everybody that is involved has volunteered their time so far, and we always try to keep it that focus, right? The first year it was just the three of us, though.
And even more so than that, I think like one of the other really key highlights was we wanted to feature drag in a way that was really community centric. So local performers, diversity as well too. But even the performers really contributed significant amounts of their time. Year on year we've had local community performers that have turned into Canadian Drag Race superstars.
Priyanka.
It's true. And even with our latest iteration, which is our Red Dress Webathon that happened in August this year, because we were recorded and we were online, we were actually able to reach some bigger names and bring in bigger stars, which was actually quite wonderful. But I think Brandon will talk a little bit about that too.
I mean, Barrett and I are personal trainers, and when we first kind of started it, we wanted to bring somebody on board who had a little bit of a different background and experiences as we did, and that's where Matt really came in handy. He's a little bit more in touch with the corporate world. Barrett and I are both personal trainers by trade. And so Matt was really able to help us like tap into the sponsorships and some of those donations and really like fundraise the way that we were able to do. And to be honest with you, in our first year, I absolutely did not anticipate for us to make, what was it, 40,000?
I think $35,000 in the first year.
$35,000 in the first year.
So far we've raised almost $150,000.
I think a little over 150,000 now. Absolutely. So a lot of the decisions that we made were based around a really strong brand identity. We really, we wanted to separate the bike rally from the Red Dress Ball. They're both great events and they are related. However, we wanted something that people who didn't necessarily tap into the bike rally or weren't interested in could be a part of and come and the Red Dress Ball, we really wanted it to stand alone with a brand, as a brand. And so it's been really crazy over the last 3 years as to how much traction we've made. And sometimes if we mention it to people in the community, they've heard of the Red Dress Ball, but they don't necessarily know who we are, which is kind of cool. It just means that like the event has really been successful and kind of holds its own in terms of brand. So that's been really great. The first year we had about 250 guests. The second year we had 500 guests, and this year we were going to have up to 700. So slowly, well, not really slowly. It's 3 years. We've been growing super quickly, right?
But, this year we had to pivot, just like everybody else is doing right now, and change the way that we approach things.
Exactly. So when COVID hit, it's a good segue. When COVID hit, we really had to readjust everything. We had bookings for the Daniels Spectrum, which is where our venue was going to be. We had our lights, our cameras, our performers all booked. We had Angina coming from Drag Race to perform for us, and it was right in time for the All-Star season. So, that's not something you can really recreate because it was a very timely thing, but like that was in the books and it was super exciting to have. We have also DJ Kitty Glitter from Australia, who's an international DJ who comes. Matt's from Australia, if you didn't notice, and he has a personal relationship with her, so we were super lucky to tap into that. I know Carly Rae Jepsen, and so having her in for the webathon was really amazing too. So so when we pivoted, we had to really restructure and rechange everything. A lot of our sponsors were affected. We couldn't raise the kind of money that Air Canada was one of our sponsors, and obviously nobody's flying, nobody's traveling during COVID, and so they took a really big hit, which meant that we weren't able to get the support that we wanted from them this year. Hopefully in the future we will. So what we did was we created a webathon,
like a form of what I used to watch when I was a kid, the telethons on TV.
And the host?
Jerry Lewis. So we wanted to do something similar to that, but of course online. And so we actually hosted live while we had videos playing. And we would interact with people. We would interact with people online. We actually gave out prizes.
And if you want to check it out, you can check it out at www.thereddressball.ca and you can watch the whole thing.
You can watch the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
The whole
there.
thing is recorded and posted there too. Yeah.
And like I said, because we were online, we were able to reach out to far more people, and we were able to bring in more big names, which was actually quite wonderful.
Yeah, it was really great because what we did was we asked the performers to submit a video, and they could do it on their own time, right? It didn't have to be a specific night, so if people were booked, it was fine. So we got a lot of great big names and more participation, people from outside of Toronto. So it was really fun to be able to pull together and do and host ourselves. Even though the videos were recorded, we were live, so there's a few little bloopers and blips in between.
Most of which are included.
Yeah. So, sort of in closing, we have a few little tips for you if you're interested in starting your own event. The first is, of course, you should start early. It was key for us that we started basically like 8 months before our event. The next one, of course, is stay excited. And that can be difficult when things are getting organized and it's so far behind, but that's important too.
We really just get like a 2 or 3 month break after the Red Dress Ball where we start right back up again for the next year. So.
Create a clear brand identity and really focus on having a professional presentation, especially if you're pursuing sponsorships. It's really integral to invest that time in making sure that you've thought through what your message is, you've put it down in a really concise way, and that you've made it appealing to the people that you've got that ask for.
Absolutely.
You'd be surprised. We created a brand identity, and the amount of people who showed up in just extravagant outfits and did full drag. You know, we didn't really ask that of people. We didn't have a dress code, even though it's called the Red Dress Ball. But the participation was just incredible, and it's because we nailed down that brand and that identity beforehand and kept it really professional. So, the last one is not the last one. The next one is to just ask. You never know. You know, a lot of companies and corporations have a budget specifically for donations, for charitable events. So ask everybody. You know, ask people for silent auction items, small businesses. A lot of people really might care about your cause more than you realize that they might. So you never have anything to lose. You know, maybe expect a no, but like ask and try for a yes, and you'd be really surprised as to where you get maybe $150,000 later. Yeah.
If there's one thing that I've learned, and tip number 4 is play to your strengths. You probably can't do everything, and you're probably surrounded by people that you can delegate some things to. And if people get involved and are as passionate about what you're doing as you are, leverage those strengths and take advantage of the contributions that people are willing to make to help you out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as we grow, we've had to kind of tier our organization or our structure. So our first year was just the 3 of us, which was a ton of work. And after that, we had to bring on almost a layer of like management volunteers. And we really tried to handcraft jobs for those people that they were really good at. And it ended up really working out well. Yeah.
And finally, our last one is do your research and be prepared, because you never know what's going to happen. So
something will always go wrong.
Plan B.
Yeah. So have your research ready. Understand how the event's going to work. Walk through it. Do as much as you can to be prepared, and figure out if there are any possibilities for mistakes.
Yeah. Awesome. Running around chasing drag queens in like 6-inch heels is not super
great.
Comfortable. So just be ready.
Thank you so much, Brandon, Barrett, and Matt. Really, really, your experiences have been so inspirational, and I love the practical tips at the end, because that's certainly something that will help future young activists in really making sure that there are sustainable initiatives like the Red Dress Ball.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you.